Hey everyone, welcome to this second video of the Mastering the League Dominator video series. Today we're going to take a look at the Matchup Dominator. That's under lineups in the main navigation. There it is, just under the 5-second primer, the Matchup Dominator. So just to cover the top of this screen here, you've again got the ability to switch leagues here. And this button here is going to open your league site in a new window if you want to make changes as a result of the advice from the Matchup Dominator. So the key thing that we're doing here, if we have a look at this settings, this is where you can change some other things, is we have the ability here to optimize for your win percentage versus your opponent for this week. Most people, when they're constructing fantasy lineups, are just going to play the players who they think will get the highest score. But it can be a little bit more complicated than that when we look at correlation or how players are connected. So that, for instance, this lineup here, we're playing Sam Darnold here. And we're also playing, this is a 3 flex league, we're also playing Robbie Anderson in the flex. Now, those two players are correlated. And what we mean by that is if Sam Darnold has a good game, then chances are Robbie Anderson had a good one too. And it certainly works the other way. If Robbie Anderson caught 2 touchdowns, well, Sam Darnold threw 2 touchdowns. So those guys are correlated. And that's the kind of play that's going to help you if just that little bit more if you're an underdog in a game versus the favorite. So if it comes down to their projection of 2 players is very similar, this tool can look at correlation and use that as kind of the tie-breaking deciding factor to decide which of those 2 players to play. And the other way we can help with this too is this tool will adapt as the week goes on. So if you're going into Monday Night Football with a 10-point lead and your opponent has only got a kicker left, we might suggest that you just play a running back, a second string running back who's just going to go out and chug out 30 yards and maybe you might hit a touchdown, but those 30 yards are going to get you above the upside of your opponent's kicker. So there's a few different ways we can help you there. But anyway, if you want to switch onto highest score, of course you can do. We recommend leaving that on win percentage. I'll show you guys some charts and things with the correlation in a minute. But first, this screen here. So you can obviously see in bold, those are your recommended starters. The guys in italic are your bench players for that week. So you can scroll down and see all of the positions and who we recommend to start in each one. If you want, you can untoggle that, and then you've just got your starters and not your bench. Any free agents who we recommend starting in any given week, they will show up here as well, and you can hide them with the FAs button. This league's quite deep, so there's none here for this week and this league. If you click on any of these headers, you're going to get all of your options at running back for that week. So these are all the players on your roster and all the free agents. And you can do that for any position. And you can even do it for the super flex as well. All of your options there. And then we've got a number of columns here. So projected points is obviously a super important one. If the game's finished, this column will instead show how many points they actually scored. The upside, again, is a very useful column there, and you've got strength of schedule information there too. And as the season progresses, we'll have some statistics for how many points that player's getting per game. And these 2 columns here, the last 3 weeks and last week, just gives you an idea of their form as well. And we've got even more columns here, so you can have a look at passing projections and rushing and receiving and kick return projections, and also kicking, team defense, and IDP projections there too. If that's your league. Okay, so that's just going to give you an overview as to who to start. And remember, under the settings, you can change the projectors. We did cover that briefly in the Getting Started video if you want to see what all the different staffers who do projections would do. Otherwise, it's just going to default to a consensus balance of everyone. And then onto this analysis button. So this orange button top right. The first chart we've got here is the outcome chart. So that's giving you a bell curve for each of the 2 lineups. So our lineup here is in green, and then our opponent in blue. And if we view them both at the same time, we can see we're fairly evenly matched, but with a slight underdog for this week. And it's giving us a win percentage chance of 42%. It's then listing out all of these variance changes here. So you can see because we're playing Darnold and Anderson, that's increasing that those two players are correlated, that means our lineup is less predictable. If one does badly, the other will too, quite likely. But then on the other hand, here we're playing Hunter Henry and Austin Eckler. Tight ends tend to be slightly negatively correlated with running backs on the same team because offenses tend to either pass or run one or the other, in for kind of 60 to 70% over the sample size of one NFL game. And then we've got the same for our opposition for this week. And then we've got some cross lineup variation changes too. So, for instance, we've got Sammy Watkins and Damian Williams in the same game. And so those players are correlated too. And all of those things are taken into account when coming up with these win percentage numbers up here. You can also get a comparison of each position that you need to start in this radar chart. So again, green is us. So you can see we've got a huge advantage at wide receivers, but fall just a little bit short at every other position. And again, these are broken down with the projections for each of those players in each of those categories here. This by time chart is one I find really useful because often you may have more players earlier in the week than your opponent, and you don't know if your 20-point lead is actually good or bad 2 players in. So this can set your expectations there. And so you can see as each one of these vertical bars being kickoff for a different set of NFL games, you can kind of see where you should be at each point during the week. And again, we've got it broken down underneath the stats of who's playing when and what their projections are. Lastly, we've got this free agent blocking tab. Now, this doesn't apply in this deep league, but in shallower leagues, this can be really useful for finding free agents who would potentially improve your opponent's lineup. So one strategy you can then do is to pick them up out of free agency or the waiver wire and just stash them on your bench just to prevent your opponent playing. And we'll list any free agents that apply to that scenario here. Every team, every player also has a bunch of tags. So you can see here, for instance, we've got Devontae Adams in prime time. That's useful to know about. And you can click through into any of these players and you can get extra details. You can get some details as the season comes closer. We'll have full matchup analysis that will come in there. And we've also got rest of season analysis on this player, and this will be covered in more details in future videos. So there's the Matchup Dominator. It's the only tool around that will optimize for win percentage, not just to get you the highest score that week, because that's what we're about. We're about winning fantasy games, not just scoring the most points.